everybody. Just welcoming you all for being with us today. Today is a very important panel. We're talking about voluntary carbon market, an exciting topic during this COP. I think it's a COP where carbon markets has been discussed extensively. So it's a pleasure to be here. Today we will focus on our industry and the critical role that it plays in lessening and devastating impact of environment. We have been hearing some great developments. We've heard ICVCM alignment with other standard setters, so we're looking forward to hear more about integrity. But I also know that our panelists will agree that despite the achievements that we have seen during the past 2 weeks, there is much more to be done, which is why I am so pleased that we are all here gathered today to discuss the voluntary carbon market, the challenges, how to scale them, Article 6, and several various topics in the voluntary carbon market. We have here with us today Daniel Ortega, the co-chair of the ICVCM, one of the signatories of the new end-to-end framework. I mentioned earlier, he has been with us he has 15 years of experience in climate change diplomacy, including driving multilateral environmental agreements and carbon markets regulation. Daniel is a former Minister of Environment of Ecuador and served as a member of the Executive Board of the UN Clean Development Mechanism. Welcome, Daniel. We also have Mariam Mohammed. She is an investor who serves as a business development executive at Carbon Vista. Mariam is very passionate. I will say that this is my personal touch to it about carbon markets. She's been pioneering climate investment fund designed to provide high quality carbon credits to conglomerates in major economies to offset their unavoidable GHG emissions. Mariam and I worked together at RVCMC largest ever auction in Nairobi when Carbon Vista has signed an MOU with the company for offtake of its high integrity carbon credits. She is an important partner of ours, RVCMC, and it's great to have her with us here today. I also thank Manish Dabkara for joining us. Manish is the chairman and MD of EKI Energy Services Ltd, a leading carbon credit developer and supplier across the globe. Under Manish's leadership, EKI have grown to become a catalyst for carbon offset, not only within India, but globally, and has supplied over 200+ million offset as on date. Manish, I'm really looking forward to hearing more of your comments. And I will say one thing. When I was in Kenya, I went to one of the plants that was doing cook stoves powered by EKI. So I've seen it firsthand. And last but not least, and most importantly, we have Lina Osman with us. Lina is the regional head of sustainable finance with the Standard Chartered Bank, which encompasses the regions of the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and Americas. She has over 17 years of banking experience across sustainable finance, corporate finance, and investment banking, delivering innovative deal origination and execution across various industries and regions. Standard Chartered has been a supporter of us, of RVCMC, since our very early days, and the voluntary carbon market ecosystem since we started working with them. It's always a pleasure to have Standard Chartered with us. Last but not least, let me do a small intro about our company. RVCMC is the regional voluntary carbon market. Is a company that is Saudi incorporated. We've been incorporated for a year now. It's 80% owned by PIF, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, 20% by Saudi Tadawul. During that year, we have launched back-to-back the biggest auctions in the history of the market, selling almost 3.6 million credits. The last auction that we had, as I mentioned earlier, we had it in Nairobi, and it offers 75% of our credits from Africa, from different parts of the continent, be it avoidance and removal credits, and from Egypt, South Africa, we had from Rwanda, Burundi, we had from South Africa as well. The company is yet to launch this year an exchange, 2024, mid-2024 an exchange, and together with it, a co-investment and advisory services. Let me start by asking on reflection on COP. There have been some major achievements for the voluntary carbon market in COP28, particularly the new end-to-end integrity framework to provide guidance on how to use carbon credits to reduce residual carbon emissions. I would love to hear from Daniel, starting with you. I would like to hear more about the framework that you have announced with the different standard setters. If you take us into that, and I would like to hear from our panelists their reflections as well on the past 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, and once again, thank you for the invitation and for organizing this wonderful discussion. We are very humble. Really, the COP has acknowledged that there is an emerging ecosystem for net zero. That's how we frame this end-to-end solution. What it means is that we, as the Integrity Council, will look at the integrity of the supply of the credits, and that is that every credit is a real reduction that respects rights, but also has positive impact on sustainable development. And I will talk a little bit more about that afterwards. Then we have partnered with VCMI, which is a Voluntary Carbon Market Integrity Initiative that looks at the demand side, and that is how these high integrity credits can be used by corporates as part of their efforts to decarbonize. Let me just emphasize that the voluntary carbon market is just one complementary tool, right? It shouldn't replace decarbonization efforts. So how corporates do the claims has to be well guided. That's the end-to-end integrity and ecosystem for net zero. And in the middle, you have two other actors, which are the Greenhouse Protocol and SBTI. The four of us, we have come together for this end-to-end integrity ecosystem. We will hope that it serves to what? It serves to inform the public on how to manage this information, how to identify what high-quality integrity means, and for buyers also to identify where that is, so that we can not only move into fungibility, but then into the liquidity that can enable the scale to growth.
That is fantastic. Can you add a little bit about the framework? Sorry, we're all really pleased to see from the supply side integrity with the ICVCM and then the SBTI, VCMI part of it coming in. So would like to hear more about the elements of the framework. What did you agree on with them?
So when it comes down to the supply, there are three major areas for this framework. One looks at governance, the second looks at the emissions impact, and the third one to sustainable development. On governance, we have set up a set of rules that addresses how decisions should be made at the board of the carbon crediting programs. Please keep in mind that we are an independent body that looks at carbon crediting programs. We will be assessing carbon crediting programs, whether they perform in alignment with our core carbon principles, and then we will be looking as well to credit categories, and that is a combination of different types and different methodologies. So at governance level, it's important to understand how the standards are developed, the methodologies that are used, whether they use external inputs, and how the management of the information takes place, and that is how the registries are managed, whether the information is publicly available, whether the calculations can be fully available, but also how you manage conflict of interest throughout the process. We have learned this from the sustainable finance financial infrastructure that set us a very well procedures for high corporate governance. The second component has to do with emissions impact. And we will hope it will resolve the credibility issues that there are in the market. As you have followed in the press, and there is public scrutiny whether the baselines are very robust and well set up, whether there is additionality, and additionality is a concept that provides value to the market. What it means is that the credit reflects an action that will otherwise not occur. That's a principle of financial additionality that the voluntary carbon market brings into the carbon finance discussions. Differently to other debt instruments, this mobilizes private finance, no loans, no debt, but private finance directly into investment that otherwise would not occur, and the result of that is that accelerates climate action. In addition to these elements, of course, there are new guidance for robust quantification, for robust setting baselines, and then we move into the sustainable development component that I personally will hope will create compatibility with impact finance. And it brings on two different dimensions. The first has to do with safeguards. And safeguards is about doing no harm. We want to ensure that there's no harm in place, no effect over the rights of people or the ecosystem and biodiversity, and the use of resources, where it's land, where it's water, but particularly whether the rights of indigenous people on the ground is respected, including free, prior, and informed consent. And these are particular, very sensitive elements when it comes down to protecting the forest and any other land-based activities. But in addition of doing no harm, we would like to see delivery of net positive impact. So that's why we have brought on the notion to develop a sustainable development policy by carbon crediting programs that enables the identification, the management, the reporting over that impact.
That is fantastic. Thank you for explaining that. So the details of what Daniel has mentioned, I will ask the two developers on reflection on COP and your comments on what Daniel has just mentioned. Would love to hear from you. So starting by Mariam.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raham, of course, as always. I'll start with my reflections from this COP. I'll explain them in three ways. And I'll first start with telling each of you what we do as Carbon Vista, and then I will give a quick recap of what this COP has meant to us. Carbon Vista is a private entity formed by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Nigeria and a private actor, Vitol, with the goal of providing and supplying high-integrity carbon credits to large conglomerates as they seek to decarbonize. And what this means for us is threefold. The first is financing for project execution in order for the buyer to be able to retire the credits that has been purchased. So that's our value chain. Now, for me, or should I say for us at COP, what has been very significant is a key pillar, which is regulation. As you all know, the integrity of a carbon credit emanating from a country, can you hear me? Emanating from a country is underpinned by the quality of the regulations that allow transfer, that allow even project execution on ground. And we have seen our president, who has made very, very important announcements around supporting carbon markets, Article 6, supporting bilateral trade, supporting ITMOs, and supporting generally the development of carbon markets within Nigeria. And Carbon Vista is playing a very active role in that space, in addition to very important private and public players. So that's a very, very important milestone, and it's something I'm very, very proud of. The second element is, as a project, as an investor, we've seen very, very important steps being taken by our project developers and potential pipeline projects that we can also invest in. One of which is a clean cooking project. They've reached a very, very important milestone, and we're very, very proud to potentially be working with them. Another one is a waste to energy project that we're looking into. Very, very key milestones, significant milestones that have been met. We're also looking at e-mobility. Our president has just announced a very, very ambitious plan to roll out e-vehicles in the hundreds of thousands within Nigeria. That is catalytic on its own, not just from a carbon market perspective, but from a development of the country. You roll out electric vehicles, you roll out the entire value chain, which creates employment because you have to charge the vehicle. So charging, equipment needs to be made. You improve manufacturing capacity in country. You improve a lot of skills and much needed development within our country. And last but not least, of course, as an ambassador of Carbon Vista, we have made very, very important conversations around supply of our carbon credits. We've also made very, very important decisions around FID for one of our first pilot projects. And so please, I would say, stay tuned for an announcement very, very soon around, especially around our FID, a project that we've deployed, and a very, very significant supply side announcement. Thank you.
That is very good. And moving to Manish, what do you think? Your reflections from COP and the announcement made by ICBCM as well.
Yes. So let me introduce our organization. So EKI Energy Services Limited is one of the largest carbon credit project developer. We are based in India and we are working on many avoidance-based projects and now focusing over the removal-based category projects also. Further reflection over the COP, the most important aspect for VCM perspective is to get official disclosure over the UN COP28 main agenda related to getting the VCM considering VCM as the one of the important perspective to meet countries' NDC and to reduce the emissions. The second thing is several international organizations, which includes VCMI, Science-Based Target Initiative, GHG Protocol, and ICVCM, come together to establish end-to-end integrity framework. So that is another one of the important activity that we were able to see, or important step that we were able to see, which is going to resolve two pressing issues which voluntary carbon market is suffering from. One is greenwashing and another one is the quality of carbon credits. The third thing is VCM market instruments steadily becoming accepted as part of ITMOs, and recently VCS and gold standard, they were able to get issuance of Article 6.2 enabled credits, and that is one of very good important step that the VCM market, the credits which would be issued from the VCM standards definitely would be considered under Article 6.2 and probably in Article 6.4 also. Not specifically, it depends on the nation, but yeah, 6.2 is definitely going to happen there. Then US Commodity Future Trading Commission offers to centralize forwards for voluntary carbon market derivatives, and Article 6 cooperative approach, though taken substantial negotiation time, yet it is far for getting the consensus. So these are some of the reflections from our end.
I think you've said it all, but I think just a couple of reflections maybe. I think that framework is really good because it really provides, as you rightly mentioned, the governance structure is first and foremost the most important thing for all of us, essentially when we're looking at the financing side of these projects. But also the integrity of it, in terms of what is being looked at, what is being actually factored in to take things into the integrity. I'm going to be shouting so that you can hear me. Okay. So I think that those frameworks and some of the announcements that came out actually the last week or so have been really interesting. I think the other side of the equation is that would be interesting to see more of is there was the announcement or the tie-up with the SBTI as well earlier this week, and I think that would be in conjunction with all the discussions that are happening, how you factor in the carbon credit market into your transition planning, and that's one of the things that I work on very closely with our team. Reflections from COP, I think the last week there wasn't a single panel that I was on or a panel that I was attending where people did not talk about the carbon markets, and I think that on its own is an achievement. I think it means that it's becoming first and foremost an important topic and is something that is important. We saw the announcements that came in or the comments that came in from heads of state, from public figures as well about it, and I think that will also help direct everyone in a certain, to get behind this market, make it work, look at how you embed it within a financial system, more so. I mean, it is already embedded, but how do you do that more? How do you mainstream it? How do you increase that demand and increase that liquidity is very important, and that's why we believed in Reham and her setup essentially when it all first started, because these are the kinds of conversations that we want to have, that we want to champion, and in order to get the market up and running. I mean, no matter what you're talking about, whether it is nature, adaptation, social sustainability, etc., the carbon markets has a role to play in all of these. So reflections from COP, I'm very optimistic about what we're going to get into in terms of partnerships, in terms of work that we can do over the next year before COP29. But yeah, all very, very positive, and I'm very, very optimistic.
So, Lina, I have a follow-up for you. You talked about SBTI and transition finance, and you partner with us in our first auction and in the second auction. What do you do with your buyers when it comes to integrity? How do you handle that? What, assurances do you provide? How do you work with your buyers and advise in terms of the integrity of the projects that you are selling to them?
Yeah, you mean the buyers who buy from us, right? So one of the things that stand, just by way of context, one of the things that we do in the carbon markets is that we source a lot of these credits through our client base, and then we kind of help these clients with the sale of their credits. Now, in some circumstances, it is a little bit of buying those credits and holding them as a principal, and then selling them later when we find a buyer for them. But in some situations, it's also actually taking certain clients on roadshows and helping them with talking about their story. So how do we do that? We actually help those sellers essentially with beefing up their story and bringing that governance kind of piece of and the integrity piece up front. In the conversation that they're having with the potential buyers. With our buyers, the advice that we provide sometimes is more around, when we look at the integrity of these credits, we look at where they're coming from, what are they contributing to, what kind of transparency measures or frameworks are in place. But also, one of the things that we focus on is we want to make sure that you as a client, because essentially we have made a commitment to get to net zero from our financed emissions by 2050. What that means is that we're going to have to work very closely with our clients in transitioning them. There will be a residual gap that has to be covered, and that's where we are encouraging our clients to do everything that you can to decarbonize before you start thinking about carbon credits, because that's how you also preserve the integrity of the market. It's not like I'm just gonna buy credits, but I'm gonna continue to do all that bad stuff, going back to the point on the safeguards of do no harm. And that's a point that we actually embed even in our sustainable any type of financing actually that we do. But specifically in sustainable financing, it's not like you're calling something green at the expense of actually harming a species or harming a community. So these are just kind of very high level how we interact with
but
buyers.
Don't you think about VCMI and the fact that you need to decarbonize and you need to accelerate your climate action by using carbon credit offset? So what I always think is the journey to net zero matters. Like if a company have a target at 2050, so taking their time, and then the last 5 years they start to decarbonize, and then the last bit to use carbon credit offset. What we encourage is, as you go through your journey, and I always say it, your journey matters. You decarbonize, and you complement with carbon credit offset. But let me move to you, Manish, and ask, how much is the carbon generation in India as a country? Is it 40% of the total credits globally?
Yeah, so from India...
And if that's the case, what do you do to make sure that the integrity and the quality of credits coming out of your projects in India is linked? Do you work with the ICBCM? Do you put CCPs? What do you do with the integrity of the credits coming out of the subcontinent?
Yeah, so most of the projects which comes from India are from the avoidance based. The removal category, like the new projects are upcoming, many new projects are upcoming in the removal category, specifically nature-based solution. Some projects are also related to the charcoal, but not related to specifically technology. So you can say almost 95% of the credits that comes from India are from the avoidance category, and that too from renewable energy and energy efficiency based projects. Many cook stove, water filter projects are now getting developed from India, and that will lead to issue more and more high quality credits because the energy efficiency and renewable energy projects obviously got criticized because of the additionality and other different aspects of parameters. But I personally believe the way in India specifically, or maybe in other developing nations, like we do have a main focus in the developing nations wherein the carbon credits are getting generated. For example, Kenya or Ghana or Thailand, Philippines. Renewable energy projects, if you see the additionality criteria, we need to demonstrate that our project IRR or returns are less than the benchmark one. And the way the competition is going on in the developing nations in reference to the tariff rate, the return on investment is far that means worse as compared to that we were able to see in the past. So that means the additionality concern, like other projects do also have to cross that specific barrier to demonstrate the additionality. So I personally believe like the renewable energy projects which are coming from, or for the developing nations, the major priority is decarbonization of their power sector, and more fund is required to first decarbonize, and then later on will go to the other sectors related to the removal and the other different stuffs. Related to ensuring the quality of carbon credits. So more and more transparency in reference to getting, for example, if it's a cook stove project, then more and more transparency, more and more SDG parameters support is the main focus that the project developers like us, we do have in the developing nations. So yeah, so this and slowly whatever the requirements which are coming from ICVCM or VCMI, we are trying to integrate or we are trying to add whatever the changes which are happening in the market in the next verification cycle, because now the projects are already registered, and during next verifications only we would be able to add more and more specific requirements which will yield high quality credit from the same registered project. If they will qualify, maybe like VCS and GS already had applied for their qualification, and then definitely they will apply for the categories.
And may I ask you how easy it is to get the CCPs? I heard sometimes it's very difficult the way it is. How executable is to deploy that framework on a project developer basis? From work on the ground. Sorry, this is, but I'm really here keen to learn, and as well, I would love that the audience would hear. Did you, when you look into that, how easy it is, how hard and difficulty rate from 1 to 10, how easy, how fast can you deploy that?
Yeah, so there are various aspects like whatever the new, whatever the transparency aspects that if you wish to get, then the MRV cost are definitely going to increase. Further, it is being expected that we need to give the transparency in reference to the price which is being earned by the trader or the consultant as compared to what is exactly the amount which is going to the end seller, or if it's a project which is related to the cook store water filters. So that is very much challenging, because in between the investors are there. They are also looking for their return on investment. They had taken the risk. They had deployed the fund, distributed free of cost these cook stores or water filters to the rural communities, and taken all the risk. And they had considered like whatever the normal rate of return which used to be there. If they are taking more risk, then they are anticipating more returns. And Recently, if you see the prices earlier, obviously before 2021, they were less than $1, the VCM prices, but during 2021, 2022, mid of 2022, the prices were very much substantial. And many investors had invested at that point in time considering the monitoring parameters, they should do more and more sample sizes of the cook stores of water filters as compared to what is being required as per the methodology. And now they are in the soup because the prices are very, very low, and even whatever the MRV plan that they had considered is not very much substantial, financially feasible as of now. So with all these changes, that is very, very much challenging to meet the expectation of the consumers, wherein the cook stores had been distributed, the consultants like us, wherein we had considered some of the revenue based on the sale of carbon credits, the investors, and ultimately the buyers also.
Oh, okay, I'll just say one thing, and you want people to and consumers to consider whether decarbonize more or use carbon credit offset. So the price is going up high. It's not something that we don't welcome. We welcome in the market for sure, because you want them to check the opportunity cost, whether they do this and complement with carbon credit offset. But do you work with project developers when you set up these frameworks? Do you work hand in hand with them and see the practicality of deploying that on the ground, or how does it work with the ICVCM?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, you hear me, no? Right. Well, it is important to understand that to talk about feasibility, we also need to talk about prices. And the issue that the demand of carbon credits at this point of time may be affected is not because of the changes in the regulations that we can introduce to ensure integrity, right? I think that the issues on the demand of credit has to do with the guidance that they were expecting to receive on the use of the credits. Offsets is just one use type, right? Claims can be of different, and we would really like to see that carbon credits can play a role to accelerate action beyond value chain according to the regulations that have been issued. So we will really expect that now that the credibility issues has been resolved, the demand will be resolved, and by resolving the demand, perhaps prices will shift. But that's not the only component of price formation. For price formation, not only the trust was needed, but also the liquidity in the system needs to be built in. So we have seen with we have welcomed the decisions both by Singapore National Authority and by the U.S. Federal Trading of Future Exchange Commission to onboard the ICBCMs as a guiding rule. What this means is that we can expect in the near future that there will be future contracts exchanges. With that, we will see more finance coming into the game. Hopefully then we will see also derivatives on the table and even price forwarding. With those elements, then we can talk about feasibility. Definitely any change in the way that we set up regulations, we will have marginal changes in the cost structure. But we have seen the onboarding of technology for MRV in many of the cases that is actually reducing those costs. So we shouldn't, I think that we need to differentiate. I think integrity means scaling up finance, but achieving integrity doesn't come cheap, right? It comes to a price, but it's a price that it will be equated by the benefits of an increased demand in the market. Please keep in mind that what the Integrity Council does is we set up best practice. We recognize what best practice is currently taking place in the market, and we set up a threshold, right? So that we can consistently deliver on that quality. Our rules affect carbon crediting programs. We will be assessing carbon crediting program rules, but also we will be assessing their methodologies. If they, after the assessment that we'll finalize in the next few months, carbon crediting programs needs to adapt methodologies, as our colleague has indicated, it will affect the next project cycle. It will not affect the current one. What we will be having in terms of information is clear information of which carbon crediting programs will be eligible to issue CCP compatible credits. A second, which methodologies are compatible with that. With that information in the market, buyers will be able to differentiate in terms of both.
Thank you very much for that. And at RVCM, we believe in the power of uniting voices from the Global South on the development of the carbon market. I would like to ask Miriam, you've been involved with us in the auction in Nairobi, and What drew Carbon Vista into that, and how do you think we can increase the demand and supply of carbon credits in the Global South?
Sure. Mic's still not working? Okay. Thank you. Right. Demand and supply. Let me look at it, or let me describe in the context of a typical market. A market is a willing buyer, willing seller coming together to exchange willingly. And from what both require in a fully functioning market is, as you described, A, trust, B, the assurance that whatever is supposed to be in the market is there for the value that it is expected to deliver, and that fosters the exchange between the buyer and the seller. In the context of carbon credits being generated from countries like ours, like Nigeria and Kenya within Africa, we see it as a critical piece in the puzzle as the world seeks to decarbonize. And we also see it as an encourager, also a deterrent to global emitters. While it may not be punitive, it also provides the opportunity to say, oh, we've been emitting and now we are evolving. And this is why it could also make we ascribe value to things when we pay for them, as opposed to them being for free, for example. And so carbon credits coming out of countries like ours within Africa come at a premium. And the premium is, A, when you purchase credits coming out of countries like ours, you're purchasing impact, you're purchasing development, you're purchasing beyond simple plain vanilla offsets. You deploy $20 million or even less, you've employed hundreds of thousands of people, you've provided livelihoods, you've encouraged an entire ecosystem, you've built a factory, you've changed an entire world that could have been backwards 10 years, you've fast-forwarded their development. So that's on the one hand. And on the second hand, it also is an encourager internationally and even for African countries to remain net zero or to remain low emitters. So I hope that answers your question. And what attracted us to you, obviously, is because you embody, and when I say you, I mean RVCMC, PIF, you embody that journey to we seek to decarbonize, and we seek to decarbonize in the best possible way with the added impact and the trust, and that is one thing we commend you a lot for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll move to Lena, and I want to talk about a point that you kept stressing on was transition finance. How do we unlock transition finance specifically to carbon markets because you want to scale, and how do we deploy it in Global South? What are your thoughts with that?
A very, very big question, but I don't think I expect anything less from you, Riham. I think for transition finance is essentially what you try, what you try to do in order to help your clients with their transition journey. So there are certain things which are not really completely green, but they are helping decarbonize sectors. They're helping move hard-to-abate sectors into greener technologies, etc. So some of the things that we try to do is kind of connect the dots on how we bring that evolving regulatory landscape, but also financing landscape into these technologies, which are all very new. They don't have a market. They operate differently. There is no liquidity behind them, and we need to kind of figure out how we finance them and what the risk is that we assess in order for us to assign a risk appetite for it. So transition finance is essentially at the heart of looking at these technologies and deploying them. However, there are also other types of financing instruments that we can use in order to help our clients with the transition. And just kind of going into the carbon markets piece specifically, one such financial instrument is sustainability-linked transactions. It could be loans. It could be other types of instruments. But let's take the example of a sustainability-linked loan. If you take a sustainability-linked loan, it means that the client can use the money for general corporate purposes, but then they have KPIs and then they have targets that they have to meet. If they meet their targets over the life of the facility, you get an incentive. If you don't, you get a penalty. You pay a penalty. Now, one of the things that we've done, I think it was at the end of last year or early this year, and we want to do more of those, is we have provided a client with a financing where we said that if you don't meet your target, the penalty that you pay comes across in the form of credits, like go and buy carbon credits to offset the fact that you did not meet the targets or the environmental targets that we have agreed and that you said that you were going to align to. I think the transition finance framework and the transition bond that we did for Etihad Airways a few years ago had a similar structure. It was a bit of a mix of use of proceeds and sustainability linked, and this is how you can embed carbon more and more, or carbon credits more and more into financing structures or into transition finance. The other angle of it is thinking about how you embed carbon credits into the transition story of the client. So I agree with you. It's not like we have to wait until 2049 to start buying credits, because that's when the residual is. We have to kind of do it hand in hand over time, as clients are setting targets for themselves as they are transitioning into their journeys. And one of the other things that we do is actually taking a step back. So not just coming in at the financing stage, but also taking a step back and saying, right, you are a client, let's say, in the oil and gas sector. How can you transition? How do you decarbonize? How do you reassess your business model? And we work with them on that from this stage until they get to a point where they are financing that transition, and therefore, we are then greening or improving the quality of our asset book so that it is more sustainable.
Thank you for that. And if I'll have a follow-up question with all of the panelists, what is one key enabler that you see needed to scale the market?
You're going to start with me? Okay. I think a key enabler is, to be honest, I think it's integrity. It's actually building that integrity. But I also think that there isn't enough understanding of the market. I think a lot of people are very confused about it sometimes. I mean, from the conversations that I have with clients generally, they understand sustainable finance, they understand a green structure, they understand sustainability-linked loans, they understand debt for nature swaps. But then when you start talking about the carbon markets, that's where you see sometimes a lot of confusion. There's also that fear as well of being at the center of attention for a controversy or being called out in the papers. And I think that's where we're kind of getting. Number one, there has to be that education. So don't get me wrong. I think the education has to be there. The understanding has to be there. You should not go into the market. You should not go into anything without understanding it. But I also feel that sometimes we let perfect be the enemy of good as well. So we need to find that balance of, right, I understand it, I'm going to take a measurable risk here, and I'm going to do something about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But even when you listen to regulators, I mean, I was on a panel earlier, last Friday, with the Financial Regulatory Authority of Egypt. And they were talking, chairman was talking about how they have to accept the fact that there will be mistakes. And when a regulator is saying something like that, it's eye-opening for me. And the other point that he also mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, is we need to decide whether carbon credits are a commodity or a financial instrument. And that will also help dictate a lot of the the regulatory angle of it and all of that. But that's a different story. But yeah, to mainstream it, I think education, and I think don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Super good. Manish, what do you think?
Yes, as we know that 1.5 degree under the Paris Agreement, we want 1.5 degree centigrade should be the temperature limit that we should be able to achieve. But 1.4 degrees temperature rise already had been achieved by all the nations or by this planet. So, not waiting on more and more concerns related to the integrity or related to the greenwashing and other different stuffs, but support the whole the business model related to the carbon credits, the buyers who are ready to support the cleaner projects or products in the form of buying the credits to make their products or services eco-labeled. So not much scrutiny should be done related to whatever the efficiencies that this specific market was able to achieve in last 20 years. But slowly and slowly, in next 5 years, we would be able to achieve some specific targets. In next 10 years, then we would be able to achieve specific targets. 100% accuracy or efficiency, we would not be able to achieve in any specific market if it's, for example, if it's related to the grain or maybe some manufactured product or other different commodities. So that is the expectation that scrutiny should be, it is important for making the market efficient, but very high scrutiny will create high turbulence in the market, and the buyers will remain conservative. And this conservativeness, to remove that specific conservativeness is very, very tough again to get the confidence and bring back the market on track.
Excellent. Mariam?
My mic doesn't work. Tomorrow. Oh, now I have to. For me, I guess it's very simple. Action. I would hate for us to be at COP29, horribly, still talking about things we should have solved by now. So what I would say is a lot more action. And action, from my perspective, is project developers actually executing and showing lessons learned from actual deployment that has happened. Buyers, sellers, also deploying capital, purchasing and exchanging and showcasing what they've learned. I think that is something that really, really needs to happen. A lot of announcements have happened at this COP. I would want next year to be a COP of, we announced A, B, C, we've done A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Thank you. On my side is participation. Just to complement my previous answer, the way that we developed this framework was with extended public consultation. We received over 5,000 comments from different stakeholders. We hosted meetings with the Project Developer Forum through AITA, and we have been exchanging also with regulators, and that's perhaps why we have seen the regulators and jurisdictions are picking up the rules. But I think participation will also ensure that when we talk about integrity, we talk about this ecosystem of integrity where we share responsibilities, right? What this means is that we will be delivering the initial assessment results sometime very soon. Probably, this will require carbon crediting programs now to start granting the CCP labels, and the public scrutiny needs to be there. In a very mature market, public scrutiny is healthy. So the media has been already scrutinizing some of the projects. Hopefully they will also move to scrutinize the positive ones, because sometimes they only scrutinize the negative ones. But we would like to see that credit rating agencies also start doing that. And with that, I think we will be in a safer ground. Participation also means that we can ensure compatibility and interoperability. If different jurisdictions recognize the ICBCM or BCMI as best industry practice and they start following that, we will see perhaps that the exchanges across different markets will occur, and hopefully also with Article 6.4. And finally, participation also means that you engage with the ICBCM. We have set our continuous improvement work programs. We really expect that you engage with us so that the outcomes of that will provide us with a new revised version by 2026 that fits the purpose of accelerating climate action through private finance. Thank you.
Okay, Manish, I will turn to you about your reaction to the media scrutiny. One is positive. I would like to hear more from you as a project developer.
Yeah, please pardon, I was not able to hear.
About the media scrutiny, be it positive or negative. You were saying no.
Yes.
So I would love to hear more from you about that before I open it to the participants for any questions.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier also that scrutiny is important for getting the efficiency, but if we'll do make any changes with the help of ICVCM, VCMI, whatever the new changes will do happen, then whosoever the criticizers are there, either maybe the academicians or maybe the media, they should take participation with all whatever the changes that are happening, and they should not be again become the criticizer at the later point in time when the buyers will try to again get the confidence or trust and start buying the credit for their carbon neutral net zero. So it should be done, but the criticism is, like I mentioned, it is important. But again and again criticizing will never bring back the things on track.
Well, I will try. I will see if any of our audience have some questions. Otherwise, I will ask. I have more questions to ask to the panelists. We have a lot of questions here. Start with you.
Thank you so much. I think my name is Usman Muhammad. I'm the Executive Director at the Center for Renewable Energy and Action on Climate Change, an NGO based in Nigeria. So I'm going to be quick, but just that yesterday we announced a project with RESIT, a US-based carbon company, where we look at smallholder farmers.
Who is the question directed to from our panelists?
Yes, both, but specifically to Nigeria, to Mariam.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a project that we are looking at farmers, smallholder farmers in Nigeria, that they are using remote sensors technology, and also soil-based analysts. So we are looking at how do these farmers, because they have started this project in Brazil, most of Latin America. So I think, how is Nigeria's smallholder farmers going to key in? Because in the past, they have seen how this carbon credit helps farmers adapt to climate change, especially when they get an extra income from their farms. So it helps them adapt to climate change, and also introduce them to financial inclusion, because they open bank accounts.
So the question is just to
how can they participate,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I think it's a very valid question. Thank you very much for bringing that. I'll give you two projects that we are very actively involved in. One is a biogas to energy project. Another one is a sequestration project. And in both of these projects, the farmer is very, very involved. It is their farmland, it is their ownership, and we're modeling a structure where they have rights to royalties generated from carbon credits. And it may not be cash, right? Because that's not what's needed. It is added development of the farmlands, extensions of the farmlands. It is setting up processing plants for crops that are generated from the farmlands. It is increased employment of the farmers and the entire community. So the whole gamut. I hope that answers your question. Involvement is royalties. Involvement is participation in the upside, which is economic development on the farmlands that they own.
There is a question here. I'll take that question first.
Thank you very much. Lina Koch from Climate Partner. We are a carbon credit provider and also a developer. Thank you very much for a very interesting panel. The main points of the issue of integrity and also transparency in education have been addressed, and I have a question related to both. I think us market participants are very well of those issues, and really can applaud, I think, the ICVCM and the VCMI for their work on tackling this issue. But so I think there's a very good understanding on what integrity should look like within the markets, on the project developers and market participants, but how can we translate this to end buyers who are still sometimes struggling to see through this very complex market? So what can organizations like ICVCM and VCMI do, in your opinion, Danielle, to have more outreach for everyone to understand? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's a real challenge, and we are focusing on it for 2024. We have set up an engagement strategy both for countries, for end buyers. We will be coming out with new communications tools to make this simple to digest and be taken into account. And we will be coming out with a more strong network to do that. We needed first to focus on getting the standard right, And now we need to get focused on getting the task done because we need to do the assessment. But in parallel, we will be engaging with these elements to provide that clarity to end buyers. I think that as a system, and this becomes an ecosystem of integrity with shared responsibilities, we also need a common narrative on positive terms of what this really means and the changes and the sustainable development contributions it can bring on. I'm personally focused as well to make the carbon credits that are CCP labels compatible with impact finance, because then we believe we can transform a market of 2 billion that is expected to grow to 50 billion to actually reach a market of 900 billion or perhaps the $3 trillion market. Let us talk in parallel. Perhaps we can discuss a bit further how can you will also suggest that we can provide further clarity to end buyers. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? I would take one here, and then I'll take here. So we'll start by you.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Biraj Gautam. I come from Nepal. So in Nepal, now around like 50+% households use the biomass and around 40+% use the LPG. And in another context, we are like 98% access to grid. So the big discussion is like how do we use that renewable energy that in the grid to electrify our kitchens. So electric cooking is the next one. So we did like some research back.
I'm conscious that we have 5 minutes left, and there are some
so my question
to who and what it is.
Yeah, my question is like how do we? So actually, like we are like looking at the this carbon market, how carbon market can support that situation, and what are the procedures.
Who is the question for from our panelists?
Yeah, maybe Manish or like whoever can would like to come. Yeah.
Okay. Miriam, Lena, who is it? Lena.
Me? Okay. Look, I mean, we would have to kind of delve into the details of the project and how it's contributing to specific science-based kind of requirements and other things. And that's kind of, I think, at the heart of what we were talking about in terms of having being compliant with certain frameworks and governance structures and transparency, disclosures, emissions kind of reporting and other things like that. But happy to talk to you after this in more detail. But essentially, that's what you kind of need to think about, and that's kind of the education piece as well. So once you kind of get to know more about the initiatives that are being done by the ICVCM and the VCMI, I think those are the things that will help you understand how you could potentially use carbon credits to subsidize some of the work that you do. There are several elements that have to be met, including things like additionality and other things. But that's why it's a bigger conversation. So I'm happy to have a conversation on this side later.
Can we take another question? Okay, one last question here.
Thank you. My name is Oladipo Joe Cornelius from Nigeria. We have 17 national parks in the country.
We have 2 minutes. The question to who and direct.
Okay. How can we harness the pristine forest in Nigeria to reflect how we can harness it to get finances from a carbon market? Do you get my question? How we can translate it to get fund?
Debt fund.
Yes.
Who is the question for?
My sister should be able to help us. Thank you.
You happily gave me the question. Sure. So there are very, very high level. There are forestry projects being financed currently in Nigeria. Mangrove projects as well being financed. And financing means essentially reforestation. And what that does is once you do it properly, then you're able to supply the credits to someone internationally that is looking to decarbonize. So that's one way, right? Your question was specifically how we can turn our forests into carbon income. That is, to me, at a very high level, the way. We should.
Okay, with that, I would like to thank you so much for your insights and your participation in the panel. I enjoyed it. And enjoyed the comments from you. And I would like to remind you of the panelists again. We have with us here Daniel Ortega, the co-chair of ICVCM expert panel. We have Miriam Muhammad, Senior Vice President and Business Development Executive, Carbon Vista. We have Manish, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the family name correct or not, Dabkara. The MD and CEO of EKI Energy Services Ltd. And we had with us as well Lina Osman, the Head of Sustainable Finance, West Standard Chartered Bank. And with that, my name is Riham Al-Ghizi, the CEO of the Regional Voluntary Carbon Market. I would like to thank you all for your participation as well with us. Thank you very much.